All these voices. All these voices. All these things you can't explain. All these painful memories. They keep haunting you and daunting me. It's just the ghost of you and me. It's just the smoke and gasoline. It's just the ghost of you and me. Of you and me.
Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Staring into the Abyss. I am your host, horror author James Hershey Jr., and with me as always, my co-host, old boy James Ash. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing pretty good. How is everybody tonight?
On tonight's episode, we're going to be talking about one of our favorite subjects, which is giants. Now, we've done a bunch of different shows on giants and the Nephilim and all that, and the reason we're doing another one is because of an article that was published recently about a archaeological dig where they found 20-foot tall human skeletons. So I want to read you this article. It comes from archaeologyworld.com, and it was published on March 23rd, 2020. And the title is Ecuador Expose the Skeletons of an Ancient Race of Giant Humans 7 times bigger than modern humans. According to a research team led by British anthropologist Russell Dement, strikingly tall skeletons uncovered in the Amazon region of Ecuador and Peru are undergoing examination in Germany. Will these remains prove that a race of tall people existed deep in the Amazon rainforest hundreds of years ago? A half-dozen human skeletons from the early 1400s to mid-1500s were confirmed to have been discovered, varying from 7 feet and 8 feet in height. Dement told Kunsa, I don't know how to pronounce that, High Life, "We are very early in our research and I am only able to provide a general overview of what we have found. I don't want to make claims based on speculation since our work is ongoing. Because of the size of the skeletons, this has both anthropological and medical implications." In late 2013, Dement received word that a skeleton had been uncovered by a Shuar local, approximately 70 miles from Quinza, in Loja province, Ecuador. Dement traveled to the site and recovered the rib cage and skull of a female, which had been exposed by flooding. The bones were thought to date to 600 years ago. The rest of the skeleton was located and once assembled, reportedly measured 7 feet and 4 inches in height. This prompted the formation of a research team, including 4 researchers from Free University in Germany, and the assistance of Shuar locals. Funding was provided by the university for excavation and investigation. Because of the sensitive nature of this, we have to be extremely diligent in our research. That's a quote from Russell Dement. Recognizing it is a controversial area of research, Dement noted, "Even though I had been working with Frey for years, I was concerned that they might not give a grant for someone looking for giants. To outsiders, especially scientists, I understand this sounds a little harebrained." And then he gives that quote again where he says, "Because of the sensational nature of this, we have to be extremely diligent in our research, since it will be met with a great deal of skepticism." 3 complete skeletons and 2 partial skeletons had no disfiguration, and they were relatively healthy. Dement told Kusina High Life, "The skeletons show no signs of diseases such as the hormonal growth problems that are common in most cases of giganticism. In all the skeletons, the joints seemed healthy, and the lung capacity appeared large. One of the skeletons that we have dated was of a female who was about 60 when she died, much older than typical cases of giganticism. The burials were elaborate. Bodies were wrapped in leaves and buried in thick clay. This sealed the skeletons and protected against water intrusion, leaving the remains in fairly good condition. Carlos Miguel Vaca Alvarado, one of the parish of the town of Changaminas, Ecuador, was all his life interested in archaeology, and this motivated him to discover a group of numerous giant human skeletons. The bones were about 7 meters high and have been discovered in the mountains of the Amazon area. The 7 fragments of the skeleton were carefully analyzed by many experts who reached the conclusion that those bones were part of a human skeleton 7 times bigger than a modern human being. Legends say that this region was known as the Cemetery of the Gods, since in ancient times this region was inhabited by giants. Many experts affirm that this place is the lost city of the giants, since many pyramids were discovered there, and their sides reached 80 meters high and 80 meters wide. Moreover, around those pyramids were found numerous objects, which were found there which were probably used for mining. Experts believe that this place belonged to an unknown mysterious pre-Inca culture. And that is the end of the article. So a couple things that I would like to talk about. There's also a video included in this article, and when you watch the video, it shows one of these 20-foot tall skeletons that they have assembled and standing up, and it is very impressive. There's a man standing there with it, and it is big. Now this isn't a photograph. This is video, to where you can actually watch it as they go around it. But a couple things I want to talk about. First of all, they said that they were 7 times bigger than a modern human being. That when these bones were analyzed by experts, now in the first part, at this one dig they were doing, they were talking about 7 and 8 foot tall bones. At this one, the fragment that they found was 7 meters high. That was a fragment of a bone. And they said that once they put all these fragments together and it was analyzed by the experts, that they concluded that the skeleton that those fragments came from was 7 times larger than a modern human being. So let's say a modern human being is in between 5 and 6 foot tall. That's a pretty fair guess, right? You're talking anywhere from, if it's 7 times that, that's like 35 to 42 feet tall. So they're saying 20 foot plus. So potentially, that skeleton that they found could be 40 feet tall. That's insane to think about. Now, this isn't one of those conspiracy theory things where you're like, there used to be giants that were this size, and here is a newspaper article from the 1800s to prove it. I'm not saying that's not real. Don't get me wrong. Because there are newspaper articles from the 1800s that show that giant skeletons were found. But what happens is people will go on places like Facebook and Twitter and stuff like that, and they will Photoshop pictures to where they will take an actual archaeological dig that is looking for something, and they will Photoshop pictures of giant skeletons into it and share it on Facebook saying, look, they found giant skeletons at this dig. And then when you do a reverse image search on that image, you will pull up a picture from that dig, that same picture you're looking at. But the only difference is, in that picture that you pull up on Google, that giant skeleton isn't there. It's something else that they're digging up, whether it is bones or you know, they're just excavating a city or whatever. But somebody has put that skeleton there through Photoshop or something like that. That happens quite a bit. And the problem is, when you have that kind of shady stuff going on, people will look at something like this, which is an actual thing that's going on, and they'll say, oh, it's just BS, just like all those other ones. That's the problem. That kind of behavior is unfortunately very rampant in the entire paranormal field. I'm not saying that everybody in the paranormal field is faking things, because they're not. There's a lot of people in this field that work very hard, and they do very good work, and they come up with solid stuff. And it's a lot of interesting evidence that you can look at and say, hey, there's something to this. But you also have people who get into the paranormal field and to get into all kinds of fields, really, just trying to make a quick buck. And they think, well, if I can fake this and make it look a lot scarier than it is, or make it look like something is happening that isn't happening, then I can get famous and I can make money. And then you have some people that just like to do this kind of thing just as a joke. You have that happens as well. But that's a huge problem for actual researchers that are trying to figure this stuff out and to find actual evidence, because you run across something that looks real, but then it turns out it isn't. Now, this has a video with it where you can actually watch the video and see the skeleton for yourself that's on display. So it looks pretty real. Have I been to Ecuador to actually see it in person? No, I have not. Do I know for a fact that what they're showing in that video is not just a plastic or ceramic skeleton that they made? No, I do not. But according to that article that I read, these bones were found in a dig, and they are on display. And they are being examined, a lot of these bones, by a lot of experts to verify. It seems on the up and up. It's a fairly new article. It was released not too long ago. So there isn't a whole lot of information to be found on it, to whether or not it's a real thing or not. But I have seen multiple places people talking about this article and talking about this dig in particular. And I've seen information on this dig and what they found from multiple sources. So it's not just this one article. I've seen multiple sources that are stating that there were giant skeletons that were found on this dig in Ecuador. So that is the information that I have to go on right now. Now, one thing about this show is we always try to tell you the truth the best way we can. And so I'm telling you, I don't know 100% that these skeletons are real. But what I can tell you is it appears that they're real, because you have multiple sources reporting on it. And you have not only photographs, but you have video as well. It's easy to fake a photograph. If somebody wants to and is good with a photo editing program such as Photoshop, it is easy to make it appear like there's a giant skeleton there when there isn't. It's not as easy to do with video. With video, you've either got to do it through CGI, or you've got to make a physical skeleton out of something, either plastic, ceramic, whatever. You have to make one. You have to model one and make one to be there to film. So if this is a hoax and a scam, you have to ask yourself, what's the purpose? They're not trying to sell it. They're not charging money to see it or anything like that. They're just saying, look what we found. So what would be the incentive to spend the money that you would have to spend to make this look as real as it looks? It doesn't make any sense to me why it would be fake. Now, I'm not saying it's not fake, because I don't know for sure, but it certainly appears like what we're dealing with here is giant skeletons that have been found. Now, that is not out of the realm of possibility for me, because as I've said on other shows, I've seen documentation that giant skeletons have been found before. I know when we first came here, a lot of our ancestors first came here from all over the world. When they got here with the Native Americans, there were giant burial mounds in America. I know that several of the native tribes have folklore and legends about giants and their battles with those giants. There's one legend that talks about a race of giants that would come in and steal the children of the tribe. And this tribe was at war with these giants for a long, long time. Because, I mean, what else would you do if they're coming in to steal your kids? Of course you're going to fight. And in this legend, this war goes on and on and on, and finally a bunch of other tribes join with this one tribe, and they manage to drive the giants back. So the last few end up taking shelter in this cave. Now, I believe the cave was Lovelock Cave, I believe is what it was called. And they get the last couple of giants holed up in this cave. And they get a bunch of warriors together and they go there and they wipe them out. So there's a lot of native legends about giants that used to live right here in America. So if we have information that giants lived here, we have folklore, we have legends from the native people, we have evidence of giant burial mounds in that time period. We have photographs from the 1800s of people standing next to giant skeletons that they found. We have documentation of the Smithsonian having possession of giant skeletons and destroying them. And we have newspaper articles that talk about giant skeletons being found from that time period. We have all those things. So, in my mind, it's pretty evident that giant skeletons were found in America, which means that giants once lived in America. Now, if giants lived in America, if that's true, then there's no reason why they couldn't also live in Canada and Alaska, Mexico, Central America, South America. It's all connected. It's not like they'd have to get on a boat and sail somewhere. They can just walk. So there's no reason to believe that they didn't live in all those places as well. So the idea of finding giant skeletons down in the Amazon area, in Ecuador and Peru, that doesn't seem out of the realm of possibility for me. Because I 100% believe that giants lived in America from what I've seen, the documentation that I've seen, the photographs, the newspaper articles, the whole litany of things I've already mentioned. So if I believe they lived here, why wouldn't they have lived there as well? I say that and bring that up to illustrate the point that it's not like they couldn't have found giant skeletons. So my verdict on it, from what I've read and what I've researched on this, is it appears to be a real thing. Time will tell. We will see. With the age of the internet and communication the way it is, it's a lot more difficult for governments and people to cover things up than it used to be. Especially when the people that discovered it don't want it covered up. They're going to try to broadcast it and show as many people as they can show. So we will see what shakes out about it. But as a preliminary ruling on it, from where it stands now, I believe they found giant skeletons in Ecuador. And it's interesting because they talk about 7 to 8 foot tall skeletons in the beginning of the article. But then later down in the article, they're talking about one fragment that they found, which was 7 meters. So I'm wondering if the 7 and 8 foot tall skeletons they found were fragments, or if they were the entire skeleton was that tall. Because we know from biblical history and from all the reports that I mentioned earlier, that these things range from around 8 foot tall all the way to like 15, 16 feet tall usually. That's the usual range they go in. We know further back in history they were a lot bigger. The Bible talks about 500 foot tall giants at one time in the beginning. And they got smaller as time went on. In the time of the story of David and Goliath, the Bible says, was 6 cubits and a span, which is around 9 foot 9 inches tall. There was another king of the giants in the Bible named Og, and he had a bed that was absolutely massive. The Bible says that that bed was made of iron and was 9 cubits in length and 4 cubits in width, which is 13.5 feet by 6 feet tall. So he's going to be in that same range, maybe a little bit bigger than Goliath during that time. So the question is, did they keep shrinking over time as they interbred with human beings and got smaller? That would explain the 8-foot tall skeletons in my mind, if they got smaller. And then maybe the fragment that came from one that was 32 to 40 foot tall that they found, maybe that was a much older skeleton. That seems to make sense to me. But as I said, we're going to have to wait and see what comes of it. And if more information comes out about this, then we will do another episode and share that information with you. But that's what I have on it right now. So with that being said, I'm going to throw back over to Old Boy and get his opinion on it.
Thank you, brother. And this is a really interesting story because it's like the Nephilim, and we talked about shows before and about this kind of stuff. And what do I think about it? And is it real, like he was saying in Ecuador? I don't know. I mean, like he said, why would they go through all this trouble to do this? I mean, they're not making any money. I mean, there is some trouble because you want to become famous. Because think about it, if you're not making any money, but they are trying to get known, so you're trying to get. There is always that aspect to everything, and want to be the first to find this out. But they've been talking about for giants for thousands of years, the Nephilim, and saying the Nephilim, and then Goliath was 14 feet tall, 15. Some say 10 feet 10. He had 6 fingers, but he was huge, massive. And you know what the weird thing is, when he was talking about this back in the early 1900s, 1800s, people used to, like, this was a big thing. Why did they? What I want to know is, this has to do with a lot of things that we talk about, and it's also with the giants and stuff. They had like freak. No, I don't. I hate to say it. They called them freak shows. I don't like to call anybody that. That's what they did. Wayland and Barley, they had their show. They would show different kind of creatures and giants and monsters. It was really, most of these were normal people who had bad deformities. And they used it for money at that time. Barlin and Bailey, that's what it was. And stuff like that. And I think there was a couple other ones really well known. But they were making money off of these people. But remember, back then, that was what everybody was into. It seems like, let me say, around the 50s and 60s, people quit caring about this stuff and thinking it was fake because they started watching movies. And I think that's what a lot of it is. People back in the 1800s and stuff believed in vampires. They believed in monsters and giants. They had skeletons. They even had pictures of these giant skeletons they have found. And they found giant bodies and had it in the paper. This stuff was talked about all the way up to the end of the century, to the 1900s early. And around the 40s and 50s, it quit. And when I think that was because of movies. That's where you get the blame of this. Because people started watching movies back then, and they started not thinking this stuff was real. And I think a lot of people said Hollywood. I think Hollywood was made for a reason. There's to make money, trust me, and be famous. But I also think it was also to discourage people. And not only that, to make people really, like, get away from what really goes on in the world. Like giants and monsters and whatever, aliens. And well, we can control them this way. I think it was a way of controlling too, because I think movies and with music and they do affect people. I don't care what anybody says that they do. I think it's not an excuse to do anything wrong, but I think it does affect. It desensitizes you for sure. You're going to see things you never seen, like in horror movies and action movies. You're going to see people getting killed. stuff I can't really talk about, but you're going to lose your total. You're going to get desensitized. You're not going to care. You're not going to believe it. You're going to see a monster. Well, that ain't real. That's TV. And that's what I think is going on. We have forgot what we were. The old ways doesn't matter anymore. It's video games, computers, and all kinds of other stuff. Texting. And we're still seeing stuff. Okay? Monsters. We're still finding creatures. Like you say, in Ecuador, they have these giant 32-foot skeletons. They found skeletons all over the place. The Nephilim, 50-foot giant skeletons. The Smithsonian had these people destroy some of this stuff because they don't want the truth being out. And we've even talked about this in other shows. And the story with I think it was in Afghanistan, a giant that the military fought. And I think some of the riots, they had this giant 10-foot, 12-foot man jump out. We did shows about this. Yes, they probably are real. I wouldn't put it past them. You can't trust pictures because, like James said, you can Photoshop anything. I can go make a picture, make myself 18 feet tall. So that can be debated. But why would so many people go out of their way to make this stuff look like that? And I said there could be, fame. That could be always everything. But why put your name there? You look like an idiot. People are going to think you're crazy or you're lying. It's something made up anyway. Just like when they say dinosaurs doesn't exist. Come on, guys. I'm sorry. They have the proof of that. They existed. They were there at one time. They ran around. Maybe not what we think they were, but they existed at one time. Because you don't want to believe it. I'll show you an example. The giant turtles that swim in the ocean? They live for a couple hundred years, but they're huge. And they showed a turtle that, they were doing a documentary of it swimming around with a diver. And I'm showing you an example. It's not about the giants, but it shows you how people are. That's fake. That's not a real turtle because it was a giant turtle. It was. Those are how big giant sea turtles get. But because people never seen them in real life, they don't believe they existed. They're real. Giant sea turtles existed. They've been existing for thousands of years. But the problem is, I don't think people... You see giant blue whales. They exist. They get 100 feet long or bigger. Average size about 70 feet. They're huge. But I've even seen people say they're fake. How do you... I hate to say... How do you believe that? Even with the giant squid, it has been proven it's existed. And people are still argue it. So it wouldn't matter if they proved it existed, but these skeletons, somebody's going to say it's fake because of TV. And that's why I try to tell people, you could have a giant dancing in front of your yard with aliens tap dancing at your window, and somebody's going to say that's not real because it was on TV. There's why I love movies and stuff, but there's the why it's hard for our way we try to prove things. And this is what I'm getting a point. It's hard to prove anything because of that. And Facebook and Twitter and all this other crap and photoshopping, you can't believe anything. It's with everything. And it's hard to believe that are those real pictures of skeletons or giants? You don't know. Because you never know what somebody's willing to do to become famous. Anybody's willing to lie and say whatever it's not true to become famous. Because that's all that matters. With this show, I don't care about that. Neither does James. We care about telling you guys the truth or trying to get the truth. We're not trying to argue anybody and make them all. We sound like we're crazy crackpots. This is a great thing we like to do. We like to talk about, especially giants. We love giants. I love giants, and I think these are real pictures. I believe it. If I'm crazy, say whatever you want, and you are going to do it anyway in the comment section. But that's the difference between James does the learning part and teaches you guys something, and I try to explain it to you the best I can and give you a different opinion. And I think that it's possibly true, these pictures. I looked at them and I read the article, and we done some research in the past. But back when he was talking about, people believed in this stuff all the way to movies started. And I think people use that for a safety blanket. And I think that there's stuff that we know because we work with people in the movie and government and stuff, and there's stuff being done for purpose so you guys don't know the truth, and you're never going to. And I don't want to. I'm just going to leave it at that. But maybe that's a good thing, because it's better off you guys don't know the truth and think we're crazy than you guys know the truth, because I don't think a lot of people can handle it. They've already proven it. They just announced aliens existed. And I think it's better off that way, because people like us will have a job still to talk about this stuff, because then there's always going to be, are these things real? Because if aliens come out, they're really real, there's one less thing we have to talk about anymore. Well, maybe we could talk about a little bit how they existed, but then that loses its all mystique and its magic. Just like giants, just like unicorns, just like Bigfoot. If we find this stuff, and they will, there it goes, the magic from it. Because you ever go, like, say you want to buy a new Xbox. Yeah, that's my favorite thing in the world. Play it for months on end. After a while, it's not. You played it so many times. Just like if you're rich. I've got $10 million. I can buy whatever I want. It's cool for a couple years, maybe a year or so. But after you buy the same stuff all the time, you can get whatever you want. You get bored of it. Imagine seeing Bigfoot. Oh, everybody's going to be excited. 20 years, 10 years maybe. After you see 100 of them, it's just like seeing another lion or a tiger in a zoo. You want to see something else. So that's just how we are. You see something so many times, even if they were famous. Say you knew Tom Hanks. After every day you say you saw him every day of your life. Eventually, it doesn't matter he's Tom Hanks anymore. He's just a person. Once you see these creatures, they're no longer magical anymore, because I've seen them now a million times. So I never thought about that till right now. So I was thinking we wouldn't have anything really to talk about anymore. Well, one thing less to talk about, because the magic and the mystique and the majestic of that whole thing would be gone. Like these giants, I would love to see these things being real. But then if they get proven, then we have one less thing to talk about now. They're not as magical anymore. And I think that's what people forget, is always having that suspense. Is it real or is it not? We'll never know. And that's what makes why we do these shows. And that's why I was going to get it. I was going to say, well, I could go on and on about how I know about giants, but you guys know I know that. This is about that, but I wanted to show you my viewpoint. That's why I'm here. And that's why I hope the pictures are real. I hope these are real. 35 foot. You know how interesting it would be nice to know that they're not, maybe they weren't great creatures. Maybe we fought them and killed, like you said, we killed a lot of them. We got them stuck in this cave. Humans aren't the best either. There's got to be other reasons. We said that maybe, but how do we know we didn't start the war like we do with everything else? Like with the mammoth, we killed them. Humans are jealous by nature. There's always two sides to every story. Remember that, guys. The giants were not all bad. So some humans were probably started some of this crap too, like we always do. So just remember that. We're not always the good guys. We could portray to be the good guys, but we could have been the bad guys for all we know. We could have went after these giants because they were giants. They're going to destroy everything. Back then, paranoia, misunderstanding, assuming, and they killed these things. Whatever they were. They were bad. And in their mind, we were bad. Think about that. There's just so many of us. Like, we don't give up. Like James said in a show a couple weeks ago, we got told we can't fly. Yeah, we did fly. It took us 20,000 people to die, but we did it. That's what happened. They killed a lot of our humans, but there's just so many we multiply, we don't stop till we get what we want. And that's killing them. We didn't stop. We found a way to beat them. And we did. And I believe they existed at one time. And we beat them. With other things too, has happened too. but I believe a lot of things existed back then, and I think a lot of people believed it all the way up to, you know, radio shows and TV shows and books. And that's the sad thing, is when you read books, when you see a movie, it's great to see it, but then when you read the book, the book's always better, right? Because you get to make your own story with your head. A movie, it's there. Radio, they're telling you what's going on. Like, oh yeah, this is going on. You still could think. The one cool thing about radio, you could still imagine what's going on in your head. But with a movie, you can't. It's there. It's over. So yes, they're probably real. There's probably maybe a little bit. The pictures might be how big they are, but I believe they might be the giants we've been talking about for years. So just think about this, guy. I know people are going to say, well, why did I talk? I did talk about it. If you really think about it and think about what I've been saying, this all has to do with this. I'm trying to be more more scientific with things. The meaning is there about what I'm trying to tell you guys. So that being said, yes, I believe those are probably real. There is a chance they're fake, but it's probably more. I believe it. There you go, James.
One thing that I have to, I guess, disagree with old boy on here is the idea of the giants being good in some way, some of them, because every account we have, whether it is the biblical record, the historical record, the folklore and legends of the Native Americans and other Native people, in every single one of them, the giants all share certain characteristics. First of all, they all have 6 fingers. That's a given, constant, through every single account. Another thing that is constant through every single account is that they are ill-tempered, cruel, that they are cannibals, so they eat people. That's probably why they were coming into the tribes and taking the children, because they were eating them. And they were, I'm trying to think of a nice way to say this. They had certain urges, and they would take the women of the tribes away to fulfill those urges as well. So in every account we have of these things, in every culture that talks about them, they are nasty creatures. And that is why we have been at war with them for so long. On the subject of Hollywood and the subject of the Smithsonian destroying the bones, and the reason why people don't really talk about it anymore, you don't have a whole lot of newspaper articles like you used to and stuff like that about this subject matter. That was a concerted effort to try to wipe any acknowledgement of them being real from existence. Now you might say, well, why the hell would anybody do that? You might understand why the government would try to keep you from knowing about aliens, but why would they want to keep you from knowing about giants? That doesn't make any sense. Well, I'll explain that to you. The reason why they do not want people to think that giants existed or do still exist is because it proves the Bible correct. That's really what it boils down to. They don't want you to believe that giants are real, because if you believe giants are real, then that takes away one of their main talking points to discount the Holy Bible. And that's to say, oh, you can't believe this. Really? Goliath, 15-foot tall giant? Get out of here. The Bible talks about giants. It can't be real, because giants aren't real. That's what it is. That's why this was done. Now you might say, well, why would they care whether people believe in the Bible? That goes a lot deeper. We've done other shows on the people that run the world. We've done other shows on Hollywood. where we talk about the demon worship and all the horrible things that are going on. It all rolls in together. I've told you before on other episodes, there is a spiritual war that is being fought between good and evil. Evil has been running things for a long time in this world. The way that they are able to maintain control is through propaganda, such as Hollywood, the news. All of these things are propaganda tools. They're used to spread the message that they want you to believe the truth to be. The other way they're able to get people to remain under control and do what they want is by trying to eliminate their faith in Almighty God. When our country was founded, it was founded by men who believed in God, and they believed that the rights that they put forth in the Constitution were given to them by God. It says right in the founding documents, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, such as life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, etc., etc. They recognized that God the Creator made us and gave us our rights. Now, if a government wants to control you, you have to believe that they have the power and the ability and the right to take away the rights that God has given you. The only way they can do that is to convince you that God does not exist. If you believe that God is a fairy tale, then there's no way that God gave you your rights. So that means that government is giving you your rights. Government allows you the freedom of speech. Government allows you the right to assemble. Government allows you the right to bear arms. All these things the government allows you to do. That's not true. Our rights were given to us by God, endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights. That means you can't take them away. That's what unalienable means. You cannot separate us from our rights. Endowed by our Creator means given to us by God. You've got to change that message if you want a compliant population. You cannot have a population of people believing that they have the right to do all these things because God Himself gave us that right. You must make people believe that the government is the one that gives them those rights. That's the only way to control people. So if you want control, you must eliminate God. Eliminating proof of giants eliminates a gigantic, pardon the pun, proof that the Bible is telling the truth. They tried to do the exact same thing with the flood. For years, they said that was just a fantasy story, until scientists proved that there was a worldwide flood. Then they tried to say Noah's Ark did not exist, that was just a story, until there were reports out of Turkey and Mount Arafat that they think they might have found Noah's Ark. Over and over and over again, the Bible is being proven to be true. They always fight against it. Okay, now this is not me trying to convince you to believe in God or anything like that. I am stating fact. This is why this is being done. What you choose to believe is completely up to you. That's not the issue right now. What the issue is you are being lied to. You are being controlled. Hollywood and the media play a huge role in this. Why do you think that TV shows like The Simpsons can predict things in the future so reliably? Is that a coincidence? Mathematically, is it even possible that that is a coincidence? I would submit no, it's not. It can't be. There's no way that some goofball who makes a cartoon show could possibly be a better psychic than somebody like Nostradamus and predict, not in broad terms like Nostradamus did, but with alarming specificity, detail, such detail that it's like you're watching the news when you're watching that cartoon. But the cartoon was 10 years ago, and it's talking about something that happens in the world today. There's no way that that is a coincidence. You have that happening with multiple shows. You have that happening with multiple movies. Now ask yourself, why? How is that possible? There's only two options. Either one, it's a coincidence. Or two, it's happening because they are broadcasting what they're going to do. They are bragging preemptively about what they're getting ready to do. This is the plans for the future. We're going to put it right here so we can all laugh about it together. Look at all these dumb people watching this. They don't even know that we are telling them what we're getting ready to do to them. And then in the future, whatever it is that they're talking about happens. And everybody goes, wow, I can't believe that. The Simpsons predicted that. And they share it on Facebook and social media. And they all get a chuckle out of it. Wow, isn't that neat? Without ever considering, how is that possible? How in the hell did some goofy cartoon TV show predict multiple things over and over and over again? Not just broadly, but with unbelievable detail. You can literally take a scene from The Simpsons and compare it with a photograph of an event that has happened, and it is exactly the same. How is that possible? Is it a coincidence? Is the gentleman who makes The Simpsons some kind of psychic, the best psychic the world has ever known? Or is something else going on? I will leave that up to you to decide. That's your choice. You are free to believe what you want to believe. You are free to disagree with what I say. You are free to leave it in the comments if you want. You are free to listen or not listen. You are free to like the video on YouTube or not. You are free to gather with other people and talk about how much you disagree. You are free to do all those things because you were endowed by your Creator with those rights. Now, if you're a person that does not believe in God, I will ask you this question. If we are not endowed by our Creator with those rights, what is to keep government from taking them away from us? You might say, well, we won't let them. Well, how are you going to stop them? If you allow them to take away your Second Amendment rights, how the hell are you even going to stop them from taking any of the other ones? I'm not saying that to be controversial. I'm not saying that to start an argument with you. I'm saying that to make you think for a second. Where do our rights come from? Why do we have them? And what safeguards our rights? Were our rights won by a compliant population? Was our country founded by a group of people that would hide in their rooms underneath their covers? Or was the entire world changed by a bunch of badasses in America who decided that they weren't going to pay an extra penny or two for tea and said, you know what? I don't care. We're going to do our own thing. Screw you. And spit in the face of the greatest military that the world had ever known at that time. A military that was unbeatable. They knew the odds. They didn't care. They fought. They bled. They died. They starved. They froze to death at Valley Forge, all during a smallpox epidemic, to win your freedom. That is a powerful, powerful thing. Now, would you go up against those kind of odds if you didn't believe that God gave you your rights and that a man was trying to take them away? That's a almost certain death wish. I can tell you that George Washington walked off alone every day into the woods and prayed aloud to God. I know this to be true. I've read the documents. He prayed for his nation. He prayed for strength. And I'm sure at some point in those prayers, he also prayed for victory because he was facing the greatest military the world had ever known. He had some colonial regulars in the army, but a lot of the people that were fighting were ragtag farmer dudes, man. They were just normal old American dudes who decided that they weren't going to take England's crap anymore. They were going to do what they wanted to do. They were going to be free to worship and live and do whatever the hell they wanted to do. That is the spirit of America, that defiance, that freedom, that feeling of we can do anything. It doesn't matter. The reason I bring all that up, that is what they are trying to crush. That is what they are trying to take away from you when they take away your knowledge of what the truth is. Giants is one part of that puzzle, but there are many different parts. We've done shows on some of the other parts. So what you believe, who you worship, that is your choice. But what I would submit to you is freedom, once given away, is never given back freely. You have to buy it back with the blood of patriots. Don't give away what people have fought and died to win. Because if you do, then your children or your grandchildren are going to have to pay the price to win it back. That doesn't just pertain to Giants, that pertains to life in general. Remember who we are. Remember what we can do. Stop allowing people to destroy you, to steal your knowledge, to steal your joy. Everybody is so cynical anymore. That's one thing that drives me crazy is people will automatically just, oh, that's fake, that's fake, that's fake. Where is your imagination, man? Where is your sense of adventure? Where is your curiosity? Does it ever enter your mind, well, what if it's not? Let me find out. This would be an interesting journey to go on to try to learn these things. I don't understand how people can be so cynical about all kinds of different things in life. It must be a depressing way to live. With that being said, I have talked way too long. We are running out of time, so I'm going to throw it back over to Old Boy for his closing shout-outs.
Thank you, brother. And I'm glad everybody enjoyed this. That's why it actually ended up being a really cool episode. Maybe we got a little bit off track, but it had the same meaning. I want to thank everybody on Parax Radio for listening to us. I love you guys. I want to thank everybody on the YouTube page, on James Hershey's YouTube page. Just subscribe, and you can listen to all our new and old shows. We're going to start doing new content and stuff, too. Try to check that out. If you guys want some merchandise, I'll tell you where to go. Shirts, iPhone cases, blankets, stuff like that. So I hope everybody has a great night. Misfits, sugar ladies, demon lovers, monster hunters, I love you. Blessed be. Have a great night.
The YouTube channel is youtube.com/James Hershey Jr. for everybody listening on the radio. That's where you can find every episode of Staring into the Abyss. We always put the replays there the day after it airs. Also on that channel is the Tales from the Abyss TV show we do. You have episodes of that on there. You also have different paranormal videos we do. And I've started doing like some gaming stuff and everything because I'm a big video game guy. I've played them my whole life and I really enjoy it. And so I figured it might be fun just to kind of hang out and do some videos like that too. Just for everybody to have a good laugh and have a good time. And to kind of fill some time because we do one show a week. So if we only put the show on, then there's a lot of days when nothing's going on. So this is a way to give you a little bit more content. For those that are on the channel right now that are watching this on YouTube, if you're here for the radio show and the paranormal content, don't worry, it's not going anywhere. I'm not changing over what I do or anything. I'm just doing more stuff. But all the paranormal stuff will continue to be made and continue to go there. You're just going to have extra content. So with that being said, thank you guys for your support. Thanks for listening to the show. And until I speak to you again, love many, trust few, and do harm to none. God loves you, and so do we. Bye-bye.